What's up, gangsters? Uh, Today we're gonna be talking about the marathon updates. I know I'm a little bit late to this, like almost a week late, but I kind of wanted to wait for things to die down just a little bit. I do want to go over them and give my opinion on these updates and what I think they mean and how I interpret them. Because some of the things they say in these live MAs are, I mean, this is only the first one. I think they're gonna do more though. Some of the things they say really leaves things up for interpretation. It feels like sometimes, and I'm not sure why they do things that way. But anyway, let's just get into the video. So one of the first things they mentioned here was changes to the resources and survival economy. They felt like they were dropping too much guns, too much ammo, too much resources like health, pretty much everything. They really want players to feel pushed out more. There was some acknowledgement too that long shots were OP, and so were just long range guns in generals like snipers. And overall, it feels like they really just want to make the survivability harder to make it feel like more of an extraction shooter than it does a battle royale. And I say I gotta agree with that because towards the end of the second week of the alpha, it was pretty much kind of a battle royale, just with extraction mechanics. I can agree with that sentiment. I was finding probably 2 to 3 teams, bro, every time. Every time, bro, have a big ass fight up in bio research, 2 more teams showed up. It was hard. Now, another thing I really wanted to go over was survival challenges. Lauras, Lazes. I don't remember how to say that, if I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Stated that in perimeter there are going to be more hazards in the environment, like these sort of flowers that are placed between a point of interest, and if they hit you, they will poison you. And this kind of enforces players to not be able to just take out their knife and run straight for gunfights or objectives. And they want to make you feel like the world really doesn't want you there. They're also reworking enemy UESC. They stated that they were overreacting, for example, and they would immediately look at you and just kind of start trying to fight. They also stated that usually it was pretty difficult to break away from an AI fight, and even when you broke line of sight, they would still follow you across the map. So they're looking into that too. And the reason why this was a big problem too is because it's not even that you have to fight the entire squad of AI. You're also learning players that you're there, obviously. So a lot of the time they would just kind of try to rush in third party while you're just getting shit on by AI. And not only that, but if you were to go in with the starter kit, which I think this is the biggest problem with it, is you spawn in with a sponsored kit, right? You kill the entire fleet. By the end of it, you're gonna have like almost no resources. So if you did end up getting run up on during that fight, you're most likely going to die because you're either out of resources to heal or ammo. And it's just a real pain in the ass, bro. Just a real pain in the ass. They also mentioned that there was I guess apparently there was a bug with the UESC bots where if you were to knife one, like to try to be in stealthy, even though you were stealthy about it and you killed someone with a knife, it would still alert the entire army. So they're looking into that right now as well. Their overall intent is to increase the challenges of the UESC bots, but also make them more satisfying to fight. So they're planning on adding more mechanics as well to the bots, like stunning a bot and then running out of sight. So they're looking into things like that to where you can play more stealthily or approach different objectives and fights differently. So I'm really liking where they're going with that. I'm hoping that makes it into the final build. They're also working on ways to increase the road resistance so that the longer you're in the game, the less safer you are, or how you should be feeling less safer the more you're in a game. Now, when they say this, I'm hoping they're not thinking about adding like a storm, like, you know, Battle Royales do, Fortnite, Warzone, and the GOAT Super Mecha Champions. So that's where I am with that. I really don't think they should be adding storms. I don't think that's what they plan on doing, even though it sounds like it. I don't think that's what they're planning. Maybe as the games go on, enemy AI gets more aggressive, or maybe they spawn in more AI towards the end of matches. I'm not too sure how they're going to do that, but I look forward to seeing how they implement it. Now, as for the art direction, fidelity is one of the main improvements that they are working on right now, and they're also working on the UI and lobby improvements as well. Art is full steam ahead on improvements, cross-stated in the PlayMA, and they plan on adding more immersion by adding blood that runners bleed, like leaving trails around the map, and also you can see the blood in the water flow. They're also focusing on adding more entropy in the world, and they're also really focused on adding, like I said, fidelity and lighting. And there's also been a talk about some foliage and shimmer being added to the overall art direction. So I'm really interested to see how that looks. And for a bit here, they were surely talking about lobby infill experience. Not too sure what they mean by that. I'm guessing it just means like the lobby, your infill. Cross goes on to say that they are really focusing on the cyborg fantasy of it all, and it's their main goal. Kind of like what the entire art direction is really going for, and the art team is to make you feel like you're some badass cyborg, you know, running down, being a blue collar worker, taking on all these shady jobs and getting paid for them. Cross also mentioned that the overall inspirations for the aesthetics are Swiss and modernism, as well as sans serif typography, 2000s and early 90s aesthetic as well. I went and took a look at what game they were talking about, and it seemed to have been an old PS1 racing game, and I can definitely see the inspiration come off from that. Now, they went on to talk about crew play a little bit here, and surprisingly, a lot of people were in solo matchmaking without Phil. And then there was also a chunk of people playing in trios. I don't know how I feel about grabbing data from the closed alpha for how squads are going to be, because it's a closed alpha, and I feel like that data doesn't really represent what a real live service game would be in terms of like stats for who's in a party, who's not in a party, who's playing solo no fill and stuff like that. But also apparently thinking about crew matchmaking, like sizes, like different mixed crew sizes. I'm guessing that means like different maps will have different crew sizes or like different levels. I'm not too sure, but that's the way I interpret it, I guess. And also they're looking for more ways to communicate with opposing teams. They're still kind of iffy talking about proximity chat. I'm not too sure why. A lot of people think it's because of Sony, and there's like some weird laws associated with that. I can't really say. I'm not an expert on this stuff, so like, I mean, that might be why. At the same time, it's like, you know, why not just come out and say, yeah, we can't add voice proximity because Sony, or we can't add we just can't add voice proximity because of legal reasons. And they're not saying that, and I don't know if it's just because they're not allowed to say that for some reason, but that's all they really said for now. They're looking for ways to communicate with opposing teams. So that makes it sound like to me that even now they still don't plan on adding voice proximity. I was thinking though, this is all just copium, but it would be funny if voice proximity was in the game, but it was just something you had to unlock to like a small raid or like a challenge or something, and that's why they're being so weird with it. But I don't think that's what that is. I think there's just some weird legal shit going on, or they're just being weird. They've been weird for a while, bro. I don't know. All right, and then of course we got some ballast changes. So during the alpha we had shield changes and tuning to the TTK, and they tuned it so that health has a bigger health pool than the shields, if I remember correctly. They're very hesitant on buffing the overrun because it's a starter weapon, and obviously they don't want to make the starter weapon to be like a busted ass thing, because then you would just spam by sponsored kits and basically never have to worry about building up your vault. And of course they're tuning snipers. Who would have thought, bro? Yeah, I think snipers did need some tuning. They were super busted, like super accurate. There was almost like no flaws to ever using one. They had a lot of ammo, ton of damage, super accurate, and I believe this game's hit scan, right? If it's hit scan, that's even better for snipers. It was just too strong. And I think the only weakness I can think of a sniper at the moment in the game was that if you were to down someone across the map, they'd just get rezzed. But even still, bro, like, you get someone down, that's a good push. Also, apparently in the current build, LMGs are kicking a lot more, so they shouldn't be as accurate as they were in the alpha, hopefully. Also, the dev team said they weren't really happy with how the ping system was, so they're also hard at work at polishing that up and looking for different ways to add different communications in the communication wheel. And I believe some of the things that they listed were things like asking for ammo or pinging items inside of a crate or a bag. Now, in terms of for the overall like gameplay loop and main objectives for the contracts, Lars felt like they were in a good spot for like the first slice of them, and they're trying to make contracts more digestible for people and more doable with random match-made players, and they're also trying to make players feel encouraged to help randoms with contracts. So they're also looking at things that worked and what didn't work. Lars personally wants contracts to be more difficult so that you get that feeling of accomplishment after you complete one. So what he's talking about here is kind of like, you'd say you complete a contract that was easy to do, so you'll just jump off the map and die and go redeem your contract. So he wants contracts that probably have more harsher conditions, such as probably exfil, do this and exfil. They already have some quests like that in the alpha, but maybe he wants to add more of those in there, which I fully agree with. I think the higher you get into the contracts and the higher you get into different levels for the factions, I think they need to start evolving the contracts into a way that makes them engaging, makes you care, and makes you want to do them. I think one way of doing this as well, like a better way of doing this, is by adding in rewards, like better rewards, because there's rewards already, but they're really bad for the most part. Like anytime I got a reward, I was like, okay, I don't really care about this too much. So I think they really should add better rewards. Granted though, it was the alpha. We didn't even have all the factions unlocked. I'm sure there was more quests as well. I'm sure they cut a lot of content from the alpha contracts, so we'll see where that goes in the full release. Now, in terms of progression, Joe Ziegler thought progression was way too fast. He said people were basically completing everything in like a week. The money and credit economy, they were thinking about as well. They felt like you made more money than you spent, so people were just always had stacks of money. And they also want to make a way for you to customize the black market more than you currently can, so that you can make a market specifically for you and what caters to your needs. So maybe there's like a build you really like, so like you could probably unlock certain upgrades throughout factions, like, oh, I need this for my build, or I need that for my build. And now granted, these probably won't be as good as like high level colored items, but you're still able to make like a semi build of what you want, but just at a lower level, if that makes sense, which I think is a good balance for it. I don't mind that at all. Interestingly enough too, he also stated that the AIs that give out contracts, they're looking at giving them more distinct identities and integrate that into specific contracts they give you. Sort of like, I guess, if you were to get a contract from, let's say, Traxxas, because right now a lot of Traxxas XP comes from killing people, so maybe they want to add like more contracts that involve killing runners or something like that along those lines. It feels like they're already doing that though, but maybe he wants to like lean into that a lot more than they are now. There's also an archive system that we haven't seen in the game. I forgot who said it, but apparently there's like a whole archive that resembles the OG Marathon terminal, and in that terminal you can read old lore to kind of get you caught up on what's going on in the current Marathon game. And I'm guessing in the archive as well, that's where you're going to be able to see your achievements and your collections. So they did say during different seasons there's going to be permanent rewards, and some of those might be collections. Now going back to what I was talking about earlier on survivability, I believe it was Joe who said it, Marathon is supposed to be about surviving Tau City and the Marathon, right? But right now it kind of just feels like it's about surviving different players. So they're saying right now the world of Marathon isn't enough of a threat to really worry about. It's mostly just players worrying about different players. So that's one thing they're really trying to work on before a full release, which is understandable, and I think they do need to do that because PvP is way too frequent as is right now. And one way to decrease that would be to add more hazards, add more point of interest, add more objectives, and bigger maps. I think bigger maps is probably the biggest one, but they need to be bigger maps with point of interest. They can't just be a big ass map, because there's really no point if you just do that and don't add any content to it. Oh yeah, another big thing they're talking about is revisiting how revives work. They feel like reviving was too free at the moment, which I have to agree on. Reviving was pretty free. You would down someone, but if you were, let's say you were 1v3, you got a free down, you had to disengage anyway, because you're not going to be able to the third stack kill, because you would just die in the process, and the trade wouldn't really work out because you would fully die and the other dude would just get rezzed. As for the skins, the team's really hard at work at thinking of different ways that they can implement skins and for ways for players to express themselves. They're thinking of this in a way that's gameplay wise and visual wise. Now when he says visual wise, I'm guessing he means like, let's say you're Void, right, and you have a skin on, you go invisible. Maybe when you do like the little thing where he kind of gets his finger and then he kind of like slides it down his wrist to activate his invisibility, maybe like on his skin, it'd have like a different sound effect and kind of different like animations to it. So that's what I think he means by that. And of course they're doing a lot of build crafting improvements, like implants being more interesting, and for weapons they're talking a lot about perks and chips, and how they're removing a lot of the perks that were on the attachments and they're just moving it all to chips. And this is a good idea because this allows for more customization and different builds, and it basically takes away perks from a specific gun family. So let's say for SMGs, for example, there was a perk that increased fire rate, but you can only get that on SMGs. Now that's not the case anymore. Now you can put rapid fire on any gun you want. So I think this is a really good idea for customization and a step in the right direction for sure. They also said they added more chips that lower rarity for more customization options, which is a very good idea. Now Cross said he's really excited for the fashion game, and when he said this, a lot of people were like, what fashion game? It's just skins. I think I could be wrong about this, but I think people took it too literal. When he said fashion game, I think he just meant like the fashion game for us, the art team, you know what I mean? Like, oh bro, the fashion game for us is crazy, bro. Look at all these different outfits we got. But he could have actually meant the fashion game in Marathon. And maybe, there's a lot more customization than we initially thought. We won't really know until later on, but I don't know. The way I interpret it though was he just meant like, oh yeah, the fashion game for us is crazy. Not that there's a fashion game inside of Marathon. He's also looking for ways for players to identify more with certain runners. Later on in the PlayMA, someone questioned that there was too many faction material and that it was insanely overwhelming. Personally, I don't really agree with that. I mean, it's an extraction shooter. There's supposed to be a lot of loot. It just comes with playing the game, and I don't really think they need to add ways to streamline that in an already streamlined game. It just comes with time. You just keep playing the game. You'll learn the materials, and that's pretty much it. I don't think they need to streamline it even more, in my opinion. But Ziegler did try to give an answer to that, and he said they wanted to add more materials that are more memorable. So for example, there was this take milk in the game, and it kind of incentivizes, like, you know, gross things, and you know, that's one way to give items more character and, you know, make it more memorable. He also just kind of goes on to say that colored materials are there to give you a heads up that, hey, this item you probably want to keep. Like, you know, would you rather keep this blue item or would you rather keep this purple item? But yeah, like I said, I don't think we need to change it. I think it's okay to have to sit down and learn different mechanics of a game and items and stuff like that. Like, I don't think everything just needs to be spoon-fed to you. So that's just my take on it. I talked about backpack looting here a little bit, and they're still looking at different iterations of what feels best for inventory management. Ziegler feels like there still has to be thought that goes into looting in backspace, which, you know, I entirely agree with. He then goes on to say they're going to make bags more scarce than they already are, but still wants there to be multiple ways to obtain one, like from the black market, for example. Also, the team is looking at a lot of different ways to maintain builds for players that lower loot levels. There's a bunch of work going into reworking resurrection as well, like the timer being decreased each time you're rezzed. More punishments towards the respawn timer resetting as well. Working on the gentleman on the bag too, so you can't just camp bags the entire time, because that was another huge problem in the alpha. Was if people knew you were still in the game, they would just camp your bag for like the entire game. You really had no reason to leave the bag, bro. Like, you camp the bag, your team has to come back for the bag. You just camp the bag. I hate the bag, and I hate the gentleman. They're trying really hard though to balance it to feel like there's a point to being res, so you're just like, not, oh well, let's just not res him because it's not even worth the risk. So they're really trying to balance, you know, there's a reason to res someone, but they also don't want it to be, you know, overpowered. They kind of just ended this whole thing on saying they want to feel like death matters, but in the alpha it didn't feel that way. Now here's a big one, the 4. So they have plans for alien stuff coming in the future. I think that much is obvious. The 4 are a big part of Marathon, and it's not even just the 4. It's the 4, it's the spit, it's the flicta, the working actor. I don't know how you say, is it working actor or canker? I don't know. It's like this god thing. Obviously, as always, they are not ready to talk about it yet. It feels like a lot of things that involve the 4 and just the overall narrative they aren't ready to talk about yet, which makes sense. I mean, they want to keep a lot of secrets and story elements, you know, for you to find out in the game itself, which I think is really good. Or maybe they just didn't make it yet. Nah, I'm sure they made the narrative for at least, you know, season 1. They basically said the baseline right now for Marathon in terms of the narrative is, right now they're like teaspoon levels of stakes right now, but they want to just add this baseline, and they're trying to build up aggressively towards the alien stuff. I dig this idea. I think it's cool. I think we should start small, build the way up. It'll be pretty cool. They also just said they don't want to start at full volume, because then once you do that, there's kind of no place to go after, and it doesn't mean that they're not already invested in those areas though. Marathon is the start of a journey that's a much larger story, but they want it to stay small at the start that gradually builds out with time, but not too much time. The devs also stated that they're actively having good conversations about all the aliens and mystery stuff involved in the game, and they're all really excited about it. And if they're excited about it, that makes me excited about it. I'm excited to see some aliens. Now, there are plans to expand the complexity of maps. They're going to be shifting around how they use the existing spaces, and as a live service game, they want to continually add more to maps over time. So like more hazards, more mechanics, all that good jazz. There were also some nook and crannies in the maps, they said, that were in the alpha that didn't include all the content. Also, some of the newer maps take into the account of the buildup of the narrative of the story of Marathon, which, you know, that makes sense. As you go into newer maps, the story should evolve along with where you are going. Joe basically just closes this out by just saying thanks to everyone for the feedback and participating in the alpha, and that hopefully the next time we see the game, we'll get actual in-game footage of it. I didn't really talk about the art stuff too much, because there's already like hundreds, if not like already 1,000 videos about it, so I don't really care to get my take on it. Obviously what they did was wrong. I don't think we need to play moral police. Like, it was wrong. I'm hoping the artist gets compensated. I was gonna say confiscated. I hope the artist gets compensated, and I hope Bungie just figures their shit out soon. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on inside Bungie. A lot of new articles keep coming out every day, usually by the same dude. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I'll see y'all in the next one, and peace.